Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the farm. After the cameras had been turned off and the production crew went home for the evening yesterday, it ended up raining even more. What started as just a couple tenths of an inch of rain here at the farm turned into anywhere from an inch to 3 inches depending on where you stand. And that's all within a 15-mile radius either direction of here, which is a pretty incredible disparity and not great for our prospects of harvesting. The weather was extremely dreary this morning. It was very foggy, sun wasn't out. Not exactly what you want in terms of harvesting. It has turned a corner though, the sun's out, and we were certainly on the lucky side here at the main farm to not have gotten near as much rain as some of the heavier locations. So there's a possibility we could harvest today. It won't be where we were yesterday because it's too wet. I think to the east of here we had a little bit less rain, maybe 4 or 5 tenths, which is 12 to 13 millimeters. The 1 to 3 inches, by the way, is 25 to 75 millimeters for all you metric folks. I do my best to keep this channel inclusive to all sorts of measurement systems. Basically, we're just gonna have to play it by ear, do some scouting. If we see some fields we think are firm enough, we might consider harvesting them. This is the ground conditions at our main farm. Don't need to work for NASA to understand that it's probably too wet here. Fortunately for us though, if we're loading these bins, the trucks stay on the gravel. So not gonna be an issue in terms of ground conditions. It's more so our cornfields around here aren't gonna have the green light. Somehow tucked away over here to the east of our farm, about 2 miles, we have some light dirt that Dad and I think may have missed enough rain to harvest today. We're gonna check it out. Now that's a healthy looking water hemp. Appreciate your service, thank you. Keep me busy next year, job security. This rainfall was so sporadic and diverse just in a small area. It's gonna take a lot of actual physical scouting to see exactly what'll go. When Dad was driving around yesterday, he noted that this field right here was sitting in between 2 windows where it did not rain very much. If you go to the west of here much, there was a ton of rain in the ditch. If you go to the east, like a half mile, there was a ton of rain in the ditch. But somehow, in this little slice of heaven, it didn't rain, or rain very little. We are definitely in a drier area in the field, so to speak, and pretty firm. Grass is wet, stalks are wet. I think if we let the sun shine and Father Time work a little bit, this corn will pick today. Should be a lot like the other farm we just came from. Light ground, water gets off of it except for the terrace bottoms. And that's a pretty fat ear. This very well may be the best corn we ever pick on this field, based on what I'm seeing on our other farms. Now, my tenure here on the farming operation hasn't necessarily been the longest by any means. However, I already find it crazy how different 2 seasons can be, even right next to each other on the calendar. Last year, we couldn't buy rain. This year, it's a fire sale. Rain, 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 rain. Last year, dry for 8 weeks. It's ironic because last year people were worried about it being so dry that their combines were gonna catch on fire. This year, they're worried about even being able to combine. Huh, would you imagine that? Dad said 1 o'clock, and I'm early, yet I'm somehow still late. Oh, silly me. He said 1 p.m. I figured he meant Central Time because it's Central Time here. Must have been talking Eastern Time. Shouldn't really be surprised. It's kind of a fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Marty's usually about an hour to 2 hours ahead of schedule, so instead of being where I was supposed to be 20 minutes ahead of time, should have planned on an hour and 20 minutes. Would have worked a lot better. Looks like someone's bringing the grain cart down the road. That was supposed to be my job here, is bring the grain cart in, fuel it up, and take it to the field. So I'll just stay here and lazily watch them bring it up to the fuel tank, and then I'll pump it full of fuel. Filling her up. It's a cool aftermarket paint job. Adds some character. Nothing quite like watching your fuel tank slowly go up. Even with this big pump, it seems to move at a snail's pace. Oh well, we're almost full. Yeah, we could probably use horses, but horses don't look this cool. The 9460R is fueled up, the grain cart's untarped, so I'm actually ahead of schedule. And I'm also behind schedule at the same time. It's kind of a paradox I live in. Oh man, this tractor is very, very messy. We're not gonna get overly ambitious with the grain cart just yet. I'm gonna take this semi to the field. It's only 2 miles to the east. Dad claims that it's only gonna hold another 2 loads in that bin, so really not gonna be much time with that 780 before we fill that bin, and we have to move 1 more to the north. We're gonna move this truck. I always like to make sure it's not in gear first. And we turn her over. My highly scientific method of how much rainfall you got and how it affects you harvesting is not looking good because a lot of water rolled off the tarp when I untarped it. It's just me, an international semi with a 10-speed manual transmission and a Diet Dr. Pepper. This is the American dream right here, folks. I was trying to figure out how you adjusted the steering wheel down on this truck, and then I realized you just don't, because it's old school. See, I told you it was just right down the road. Dad's opening up with the 780. Just parked here at the other trailer. I really got to work on the shifting part. I've been so spoiled by those silly automatic trucks that I have a hard time keeping track of the gears. Fortunately, the last stretch here was downhill, so it didn't matter that I couldn't get it back into drive. Good enough for me. Fire up and let the horses sing. Dad's a rascal, always messing with the seats. Headed to the field with my already dirty windows. That's unfortunate. That at the very least we got all these beans behind the main farm cut. Any progress is better than no progress at all, and we have arrived, albeit fashionably late. About 95%, give or take, of this farm is in pretty passable condition. We're going to be in the same boat that we were yesterday, one of our worst farms on paper, but it's going to be one of our highest yieldings if we don't throw our ears all over the ground. Again, this light ground where the water rolled off of it, if you can keep it hydrated, it can grow good crop. Now this farm is located right on the heart of the glacial moraine, or where this Wisconsin glacier came down and kind of went back and forth and stopped. So we've got all this outwash here. It's created kind of a sharp roll to this farm. We've got it terraced on 3 or 4 different levels. Those are going to be the troublesome spots. I've already drug some mud and I've only gone a half mile through the field. All right, there's an arc to this. Slingshot engaged. Whoop. Oh, plowed my way through the bottom of that one. Let's just say, as I'd predicted, a lot of the field is pretty dry. However, there's a very small portion of the field that is extremely wet, namely the terrace bottoms. You're not exactly supposed to do that. Or really any of that right there. This is why we need tracks on the grain cart. Wasn't even spinning. This is just a prime example why I'm so grateful not to be the power washing guy. Thanks, Jeff. Take blood pressure medication or have even been diagnosed with high blood pressure. But if I did have it and was diagnosed with that, I believe now would be the time to pop 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 or the whole bottle. Not exactly what you want to see. Kitty and I have officially caught the trucks. Not that that's really impressive because Dad, Chris, and Jeff are hung up over at the bin site moving the auger. We filled the first bin, didn't take long, and they're moving to the north one, and we're just gonna sit.
You think?
Hate to watch that grain cart turn into a plow.
Turn into a what?
A plow.
Yeah, your wheels are not.
I'm always surprised that Dad did not clean the mud out of this outside row unit.
I didn't realize how muddy it was.
Yeah. This is the leftover of yesterday's fiasco digging up mud with the corn head on the previous field. Next year, Dad will be like, Why does the bearing keep going out on that outside row? Maybe because it ran in mud instead of oil. Here is one of the nicest features of these new CR corn heads. You can actually open up the outside snout and work on it. Before, those 608Cs and 708Cs we ran, they folded out to the side and you didn't have full access. Now we can actually get to this outer gathering chain and, in this instance, clean out the mud that my dad left. I've had this Milwaukee battery-powered blower in the grain cart for probably the last week to 10 days, just waiting for the time where it was needed by a combine operator. And I finally had my moment in the limelight. It was used. Trucks are here. That concludes our intermission. Had to get creative to clean the backup camera. It's not exactly reachable from the ground. It is nice to be able to use it. We have sidelined dumping on the go. Once we get about halfway up the field, these terraces are extremely wet in the bottom. I'm trying to keep the grain cart out of them, just to not make an unnecessary mess. It'll slow us down a little bit, but I wasn't even planning on picking today, so I guess we'll count this as a victory. Loading the trucks. When you're picking the row of shame, the most important thing to do is make sure that that row is at least on your row sense feelers. That way you don't have to steer while you're sad about your performance. That looks like a war zone out here. The boss is back from his nap, and he's in the operator's seat again. Corn's not running too bad either for this old farm. All over the place. I've seen some 1s in front of the yields, and I've seen some 3s. That's the variability you're going to get with this real light ground. You think if we would have put another 20 pounds on with our side dress pass, that would have made quite a difference?
Probably would have helped, but I don't know if it helped for what it cost. I think I'll go to Glen Oil, pick that corn out, and then in the morning, depending how foggy it is, and then switch over to beans over there and then put them in the bin. I'd say they're at least 20% right now.
I put them in the high teens, but they're drying out with the sun. Time after time. It was extremely difficult to do, but we worked my replacement grain cart driver into the schedule to get some training in. Not a good start to our training session, Lenny. Combine's already stopped. I think a new grain cart driver gets a couple free passes. Okay, Lenny, prepare yourself for criticism. We're catching the combine. Take notes. This is how it's done. Nah? That's what you have to say, ah? Okay. There you have it, folks. Ah. He's figured out how to shift gears, which is not good when you're trying to maintain a fixed speed. Nope, that's the shifter. Oh no. Oh, he shifted gears. Okay, he has been moved away from the gear shifter. He can observe from the left. That got me fired, bud. Lenny and I have a public service announcement for you all. Make sure you follow the link to farmfocus.com to get yourself some aTrippyFarmer merchandise. I think based on our yields, there should have been a lot less red and oranges and yellows and more greens on the combine side. And for the young ones out there, make sure you get a farmer in training shirt. Lenny's got a little bit of growing to do for this one. On the bright side though, he has figured out not to poop in the tractor. Small victories. Yeah, I know, the cab's dirty. Next time show up with a vacuum cleaner, we'll fix that. Nothing slows you down quite like point rows and mud. If the combine's making it sloppy, that's never a good sign. Be careful, Dad. I already had to dig out your corn head once today. I'm gonna stop before this terrace because I don't want to go through it loaded. That's simple. Field condition report, still not very good in certain spots. Liddy, you're not supposed to do that. I know you're in training, but dragging ruts for 50 yards, probably not a good idea. We'll let this one slide though, because you're new. There are roughly 3 good spots along the road on this field to load trucks. And coincidentally, this broke down Oldsmobile is taking up 2 of them. He wasn't there when we started, I guess that's just bad luck for us? Or him maybe, or both of us? I don't know. There is definitely some kind of twisted irony in the fact that he has a decal on his front windshield that says locally hated. You can't make this stuff up, folks. There goes Lenny. The sunset is looking good tonight. Woo! As for Lenny's performance review, he has room for improvement. It would help if he could reach the pedals and also could speak words. He definitely has some room to grow, so to speak, but I think we'll keep him around and see what he's capable of. I'm still pretty satisfied with the factory installed stock stompers on our Deere C8R corn head. There's a few spots it's missing here just from going over the terrace. The auto header height control can kind of get messed up. You would rather have it be a little bit too high than replacing snouts on your corn head. So that's a price to pay, although I would really like to see the Yetter Devastator in action. It's a completely different style of stock stomper, so to speak. It's more of a rolling crimper underneath the corn head, as opposed to a shoe just pushing the stalks over. From what I've seen, even on a non-chopping corn head like we run, it does a pretty darn good job. Watch Marty come over this terrace. He'll be straight whipping it on X Games mode, as the kids say. Now look at those little wave clouds on top of the sunset. That is really interesting. It's like a little swirl stretched out. Last 2 throughs should fit on Chris, don't you think? Or 2 rounds.
There's 3 acres left, so there's more than 2 rounds.
It's time for my favorite game of every night. Will the rest of the field fit on 2 trucks as opposed to 3? My job as the grain cart driver is to make sure everything squeezes on as little trucks as possible. Sometimes in that process, though, I get in trouble from the combine operator for overloading the trucks. The answer to that is no. It's not going to fit. If it was dry corn, I could probably squeeze it on, but it's right around 18%, so it has more volume per weight. If I get 50,000 on, I'd be lucky. Truck's headed in, combine's headed in, and after I do some loops around the field real quick to get the mud off, I'll be headed in as well. Time to go home. As the tractor's cooling down, I took a second to tabulate our yields out there. It's running about 18% moisture, more like 17.9, but we'll round up for the sake of simplicity. Came in at 220 dry. I recognize that that's not a sky-high yield or record-breaking or anything exciting like that. For that farm, though, that is incredible. That very well may be the best, if not one of the best crops we've ever pulled off in terms of corn there. Mother Nature was on our side this year. You also have to remember, anywhere that I drug ruts out in the field was probably somewhere that had some yield loss, which was a lot of the field because it's a wet hole. Why do you even need to install lights in the machine shed when you got all these tractors with those fancy LEDs? Might as well make use of them. Until Dad comes in, he gets upset when I do this. Tractor's not running. The 780 is gonna spend the night next to the fuel tank. 670 was already inside. Grain cart tractor's in there. I'd say it's quitting time. There's something very peaceful about the sound of a fan running on a grain bin. Feels like home. Hey, good looking. Not you. You. Ooh. Sorry, grain cart tractor. Alrighty, everyone. I think that's more than enough mud and farming for one video. I apologize if all of that wet dirt triggers some of you. Nothing I can do about it. When we have to send it, we have to send it. Got the corn out of that field. It's one more we can check off our list. Everyone, I appreciate you tuning in. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more. And comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!